سكينة 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 إنا لله إنا لله سكينة
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر، وأما السائل فلا تنهر، وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. The plight and the trials of Sayyidah Sakina alayhi salam highlight to us the importance of the orphan in the religion of Islam. And indeed, you find in each and every one of the world's major religions, whether you meet Christians or Hindus or Buddhists or Sikhs or members of the Jewish community, or indeed those people who don't have any faith, each and every one of them relates to the importance of protection of the rights of the orphan. Indeed, when we look around us in the world today, you find that there are so many orphans who face times of difficulty and trial. War-torn countries in the world have resulted, without a doubt, in many orphans not having the same blessings that we have in our life, because it's easy for us to sometimes take our lives for granted. Never have we seen, for example, how it feels to be homeless. Never have we seen how it feels to be in the middle of ruins where we have nobody to cater for us. There are so many orphans in the world today who sadly don't even have houses. In many cases, there are yatims in the world today who have to beg for their food. As in, if a person goes to parts of India and Pakistan, or if a person goes to parts of Iraq and Afghanistan, or if you go to Syria or Yemen, you'll find that there are many of the yatama there who nobody even thinks about, because we're so busy in our world where the things that we have targets for show that sometimes we've forgotten the rights of the orphan, the interests of the orphan. Even though we can see every day in the news that there is a bomb blast, for example, in Yemen, or that there are thousands who have been misplaced or have been left without shelter in parts of, for example, Syria, yet many of us don't even bat an eyelid. If you were to ask many members of the Muslim community, have you sponsored an orphan? You can sponsor, for example, in this world, there are those who may sponsor a plant to grow. There are those who may sponsor an animal to live. All of these are meritorious. But to sponsor an orphan, no doubt, is one of the highest acts that you could perform as a Muslim. Many of us focus on our prayers and our fasting, but forget the social dimension of the religion of Islam. Islam, as a religion, has a social dimension, a spiritual dimension, a political dimension, an ethical dimension. And part of the social dimension was that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wanted us to think of the rights of the widows, of the rights of the poor, of the rights of the needy, and the rights of the orphan. So much so that he made it clear to us in a couple of traditions which come under the category of what is known as a hadith Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, within these traditions, you'll find that these are the words of God, not in the Quran. In the Quran, you have the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Outside of the Quran, you have some wonderful traditions of the Lord, and amongst them are the traditions that state that when an orphan cries, my hands pick up the tears of the orphan. Imagine how important the yatim is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Lord says that not only do my hands pick up the tears of the orphan. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have a hand. What this means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I'm the one who looks out for that orphan, even if you will not. But if you truly are somebody who follows my guidelines, then you too as well. Someone might ask that, Sayyidina, if a non-believer can look after the rights of the orphan, then why do I need Islam? At the end of the day, I could be an atheist and I still recognize the need to look after the orphan. You're right. There are many atheists who may look after the rights of an orphan. The difference with Islam, Islam doesn't just say that it's good to look after the rights of the orphan. Islam entrenched it within the legal and the economic system, that you had to observe the rights of the orphans. When you come to certain economic principles, an orphan, one may look after them emotionally, one may look after them economically. If in this world we look after the both of these, then you'll find that the Sukainas of this world will not face what they faced in the ruins of Sham. That you will not find that there will be young girls who will be slapped or beaten or abused emotionally in the same way that there was the emotional abuse that was faced by the daughters of Al Muhammad salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. Therefore tonight, let's examine the position of the yatim and the yatama in honor of Sayyida Sukain and in honor of the ladies and the daughters of Al Muhammad salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. And I'd like to do this in the following stages. Number one, how does this surah, Surah Al-Duha in the Quran, highlight that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always wanted the Prophet to remind himself and others of the position of the orphan? Number two, which other prophets in the Quran looked out for orphans because they were born orphans? Number three, how does the Quran highlight emotionally, don't let an orphan feel sad because of your arrogance towards them? Number four, how does the Islamic economic system tell you that there are certain forms of rights which you have to pay so that the needy and the orphans in your society are looked after? Number five, if I want to adopt an orphan, what are the laws and the different ways in which I may adopt an orphan? Number six, if a person is an orphan, can they turn around and blame God and say, God, why me? And how was the example of Al Muhammad the best example? That even we grew up in houses as orphans. And finally, how many orphans saw the end of the lives of their beloved from Karbala to Kufa to Sham? Let's examine this and dissect the topic in complete depth. The verses that I quoted at the beginning of this lecture come to us from Surah Al-Duha. Surah Al-Duha, without a doubt, was one of the earliest chapters of the Holy Quran. Find that this particular chapter of the Holy Quran highlighted to us how the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family was mocked and was ridiculed. Because at the beginning of the chapter, it gives you an indication. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has not forgotten you, nor has he forsaken you. When I see a verse like this in the Quran, the first question it beggars is, what does it mean? Your Lord hasn't forgotten you, nor has he forsaken you. As in, there must be a reason for the revelation of this verse. It doesn't just randomly say, your Lord has not forgotten you, nor has your Lord forsaken you. The beginning of the verses say, they talk about what? The morning and the evening. So you've got the beginning talk about the morning, then the evening, then your Lord hasn't forgotten you. Someone's like, hold on, I don't get this. I swear by the morning, I swear by the evening, your Lord hasn't forgotten you. What is the Quran trying to say? Abu Lahab, his wife, Jameel, used to always attack the Prophet, both physically as well as emotionally. She used to mock him. This yatim suddenly says he's a nabi. Because the yatim was always seen as the lowest of society. An orphan does not have a father who can stand up for them and who can defend them. They have, for example, a mother at home. No father to come and stand for them. All of us, we always can rely for our dads as our backbones. When you think back to your fathers, or you think back to your parents, they're your backbone. Something goes wrong, you know that they're there for you. The most downtrodden of society was the orphan. To her, she couldn't believe not only my husband's nephew, but an orphan who didn't grow up in wealth, and now he becomes a Nabi. So she, firstly, would never ever call him Muhammad. She used to call him Mudhammam. Never would she call him Muhammad. She used to say Mudhammam. Secondly, she used to notice that when the Quran was being revealed, the verses were coming thick and fast. So what happened was, the verse would come, and then the Prophet would tell the companion. Another verse would come, he'd tell the companions. And this was happening regularly. Then there was a sudden lull. There weren't many verses coming. When that lull happened, she would turn around to everybody and said, it looks like Muhammad's Satan has now forgotten him. She's not going to say Muhammad's God. Because if she says Muhammad's God, that means she's admitting that he's a prophet. So she said that Muhammad's Shaitan has now forsaken him, has now forgotten him. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, was also wondering, how comes I was receiving emails every day, and now for a week there's been no email? Because what's revelation? Revelation is an email in reality, which is sent to you from the Lord of the heavens to the earth. As we say in Arabic, I give the example, but of course it's not the exact, it's rather a trivial example. But a wahi and an ayah is an email. Allah sends you an email. And every day the emails were coming. The Prophet was wondering, why have the emails not come? What's wrong? Is there an issue that there have been no emails coming in the last couple of weeks? She was telling the people, look at the orphan boy. He told you he's all the Nabi. He gets emails from God in our language. Where's his emails? Suddenly, the verses of Surah Al-Duha came down. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa-Duha wal-Layli idha saja. Why Duha? Why Layli idha saja? Because the Duha represented morning, when it's very busy. All of us getting up in the morning, there's what they call that period in the morning. Don't they call it rush hour? When you're on your way to work, you never expect to leave your house at 7:30 for a smooth ride, unless it's New Year's Day, for example. So therefore, in the morning, all the human beings are up, they're ready, they work. What happens in the evening? It's more calm. You want to go to a mosque at 8 p.m., it's easier than sometimes going to a mosque much earlier in the day. What is the Quran saying? There are times when these revelations will come very busy. There are times when they'll come very calmly. There are days we'll send you a revelation non-stop. Maybe 3, 4, 10, 15, 20, 100 ayahs in one day. Maybe we'll send you one ayah a week. By the morning, by the evening, your Lord has not forgotten you, nor has he forsaken you. And he will give you that which you are pleased with. Then he said, Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa. Did he not find you an orphan, and he was the one who looked after you? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alih. What was he? He was an orphan by the time he was born. Because an orphan is categorized as what? As the one who has lost a parent, for example, before they are baligh. See, if someone is 18, 19 years old, and they've lost their parents, they're not counted as a yatim. Yatim is under bulugh. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa his father died while his mother, according to different sources, was pregnant with him. And therefore you found that for the Holy Prophet, life was not easy at the beginning. Who looked after him at the beginning? Abdul Muttalib. Yes. After his mother Amina died, Abdul Muttalib looked after him. But Abdul Muttalib looked after him not as much as Abu Talib looked after him. In other words, when the Quran was saying, did we not find you an orphan and we gave you shelter? Who did Allah use as the wasila to look after Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Allah used Abu Talib to look after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Would Allah use a kafir to look after his prophet? I ask you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would use a disbeliever to look after his prophet? For us, there are laws about how we eat, when we eat, with who we eat, who puts his hands on us, what if there were. All of these laws we see in Islamic law. Would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not put somebody of the highest spiritual rank for his greatest prophet? Therefore, those who come and tell you, like you find unfortunately some schools in Islam, would say that Abu Talib is a kafir, Abu Talib is a disbeliever. The Quran says, we found you an orphan and we gave you shelter. The wasila was Abu Talib alayhi salam. Abu Talib, Allah used Abu Talib. That's why for me as a Shi'i, Abu Talib is not just the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. Abu Talib for me is someone chosen by Allah to look after the prophetic message. Abu Talib is much higher than a person just saying he's the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. Abu Talib nurtured the young Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa. So therefore Rasulullah himself was born an orphan. And that's why the Quran says, Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa. Did we not find you? Meaning that those who are saying to you that your Lord has forgotten you, did I forget you when your dad died? When your dad died, didn't I make it easy for you? Your mom was there. Your grandfather was there. Your uncle was there. All of them were there. Then from there, you found the Quran made it clear. A message to him, but really to the whole of society. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Therefore, when you see an orphan, never hurt the orphan. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. And when they ask you a question, don't reject them. You find, therefore, the Quran had put a clear message. Our religion is not just salah, som, salah, som. Our religion is a balance of spirituality and social reform. There are some Muslims, social reform top, salah zero. There are some salah top, social reform zero. You'll find one group of Muslims, they're like, but I give to the poor and I give to the orphans. Buddy, that doesn't mean you stop praying. You know, you'll always hear someone saying, Sayyidina, I have a good heart, but I don't pray and I don't fast. You've just revealed your heart there. It's like going to an exam, GCSEs or A-levels, and you come outside the exam hall and you're like to the teacher, you know, I've got a great brain. So, okay, mashallah, well done. Prove it on the exam paper. No, but I got a great brain. Okay, so what's the point of having a great brain if you're not going to answer the question? Likewise, what's the point of saying, I've got a pure heart if you're not going to establish what the religion teaches you? I've seen people, wallah, who give money to the poor, not because they care about the poor, rather because they have done so much haram, they need to flog it away with some donation. Honestly, Muslims, in some cases, when they give money to the poor, what do you think? They give it because they care that person's poor? They're like, bro, the amount of haram I've done this year, I should give some charity. Is that what Islam became? That's what the religion became? So you had one group, social, they're brilliant. They give to the poor, and they are at the same time helping orphans, but they don't pray. And believe you me, the ones who don't pray, then they have not understood a single bit of the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't care what anyone says to me. I've heard so many excuses, it's become ridiculous. I even heard an excuse recently. Someone said that we don't pray because Imam Ali alayhi salam was killed in sajda, so we don't pray. Okay, then why is Imam al-Hussein praying in Karbala? If Salah stopped with Imam Ali, then why is Imam al-Hussein praying in Karbala? Karbala is 21 years after Imam Ali got killed. So if anyone was going to stop praying, it would be Imam al-Hussein. But Salah, Saum, that's the spiritual dimension. Add to it the social dimension. And if you're good in the social dimension, add to it the spiritual dimension. So you found that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stressed this. Likewise, the prophets who had come before him, Moses, orphan. Abraham, orphan. All these prophets of God, they were born in difficult times. And that's why when someone comes to me and says, why is it that I was born and I don't even know my father? Why did God test me like that my father died when I was 5 or 6? Join the club of the Ma'soomeen. Isn't that true? Is there a better club than the club of Moses and the club of Ibrahim? Jesus had his own special restriction, but he could also join that club in a way. And the club of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Nabi Musa alayhi salam, born in this world, they killed his father. And after his father had been killed, Nabi Musa made it clear, I will look after orphans, for I was an orphan. How many of you have read the story with Musa and Khidr, when he repairs the wall, because the wall belonged to two orphans. So you found that Nabi Musa, Nabi Ibrahim, all of them would always say, the first area you should focus on, the emotional warmth to an orphan. That orphan has not felt what you felt. We have double rizq at home. Sometimes they don't have the double rizq of mother and father. We could have lived with our father for 70 years and we still don't have enough of our father. Isn't that true? Imagine you haven't had a father even 1, 2, 5, 10 years. That orphan you should show extra concern for. Believe you me, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me, that there are times when I see someone who's an orphan and I want to say something to them, then I think that, you know what, they're a yatim, and I hold back because I'm like, listen, they haven't had it as easy as we had it. And they're some of my friends even. And then you look with extra care. Why? Because the Quran would reprimand someone who hurts an orphan or pushes an orphan away. How many of you have read? And I gave the tafsir only a couple of months back. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم. Have you seen the one who belies the day of judgment? The one who pushes the orphan away? Abu Sufyan used to want everybody to know that he used to give donations big. He used to give a lot of meat. One day an orphan came to him and said, Abu Sufyan, we heard you're generous. Please, I'm a yatim. If you could give me something. Abu Sufyan looked around. Is anyone looking? Because when I give, I want people to look. If no one's looking, what's the point of giving? It's the beauty of life that if a person has a relation with Allah, you don't care if someone's looking or if they're not. When it comes to haram, someone tells you do haram, you're like, but God's looking. When it comes to halal, you want to do a halal, someone says, but no one's looking, but God's looking. The most beautiful relationship you can have in life, be it for haram situation or halal, is to know that, listen, God's watching. You could tell me that my mom's not watching, my dad's not watching, community is not watching, but my Lord's watching. Abu Sufyan's main concern, are people watching? No. So when the orphan said to him, give me, he pushed him away. The Quran revealed the verse. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمَ. يَدُعُّ, push him away. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. Nor does he care for the food that goes towards the needy. The Quran highlighted this on the one level. Emotionally, do not push an orphan away. You know, sometimes we go to Iraq, and when you go for ziyarah, you have these young children who come and they hold on to you. Please give me donation. Please give me donation. You could have two types of reactions. One is a person who understands Bibi Sukaina. Another hasn't. The one who understands Bibi Sukaina will say, please, I don't, for example, maybe I don't have now, but smiled when they say it. And the one who doesn't understand Bibi Sukaina and others, you'll find them saying, move, move, don't talk to me. Or push them away. Don't. I know that sometimes these situations can be a bit frustrating when 20, 30 kids are jumping on you, give me, give me, give me. But try and smile with them, try and talk to them. For that's the akhlaq that was not seen in Sham, but was seen in the life of Al-Muhammad. Al-Muhammad, salawatullah wa salam alayhim, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, his family was sitting one day. This young man comes, he says, Ya Rasulullah, our fathers died. It's just me, mom, and my sister. The Prophet looked at Bilal, he said, Bilal, do me a favor. I said, what is it? He said, go and get 21 dates. You know, the dates. Bilal went, he got 21. If you imagine, 7, 7, 7. At that moment, Mu'adh bin Jabal came and he patted the head of the orphan. He just patted the head. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa look at how much reward you get. He said, Mu'adh, you know what you just did? He said, yes, I just patted the head of it. He said, for every hair that you touched, for every hair that you touched, will be light for you on the day of judgment. Day of judgment can either be a day of darkness or a day of light. Do you agree? It can either be a day where your feet are firm or where your feet are slipping everywhere. He said to him, Bilal, Mu'adh, when you've touched the head of an orphan, imagine you touch the head of an orphan, that 5, 6-year-old maybe has 10,000 hairs, for example, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. For each hair is light on the day of judgment. And then the Holy Prophet listened to what he said. Me and the sponsor of the orphan are like this in Jannah. Sponsor of the orphan. Imagine when the Holy Prophet says me and the sponsor of the orphan, he's giving us a hint that one of the most meritorious acts that you could perform is by sponsoring an orphan. Someone might say, Sayyidina, how? As in, for example, say now I want to adopt an orphan. Let's look one angle. There are, for example, orphans in Sham today. There are orphans in Yemen today. There are many in Iraq today. For example, there are other countries as well. You want to adopt an orphan. Adoption, of course, in Islam is allowed. And that is something which can be meritorious, but there are laws to be observed. For example, if I today go to adopt an orphan, and that orphan may be a baby, then if my wife suckles that baby, then that baby, when they grow up, say it's a male, when they grow up in our house, when they reach the age of bulugh, my wife will not have to wear hijab in front of that child. Why? Because there's a biological relationship. Say, for example, that I want to adopt an orphan who's 5 years old. 5-year-old from, for example, let's say somewhere in Sham, there is a 5-year-old who's been affected by the war. I adopt this orphan girl. When she reaches the age of 9, does she have to wear hijab? Yes. She has to wear hijab in front of me. Someone says, but I've adopted her. No, you adopting her is you helping society and you're benefiting society. But the laws of biology cannot change. The laws of biology, there is a certain mahramiyya. We have the mahram and the na-mahram. There are laws that have to be applied. Because there are certain people who think that if I adopt an orphan, it doesn't matter how old that orphan is, my wife doesn't have to wear hijab because it's like her child. No, not at all. It's not like her child. Rather, you have done a great benefit for that child, bringing them to a better world, maybe more education, healthy environment, but there are still laws to be observed. Someone might say, what's saying it's difficult to adopt an orphan from Iraq. Do you know how much paperwork, for example, the government will ask you the paperwork and how old is this child and then visa, and so on? You can adopt and sponsor an orphan in a different way. You could, for example, there are many organizations today where a person pays a nominal sum, maybe 200, 300, 400 pounds a month, and you're able to adopt an orphan in which way? That you say their education, I look after it. Their food, I will look after it. Because you don't know how much emotionally these orphans, when they know that they have someone out there who cares for them, who is not there to push them around, to hit them, to slap them, it makes a big difference to that child. That child sees other children in good schools, but they're not. Sees other children who have a chance for people to smile with them, but they don't. That child, you could say to a lot of these organizations, how many do good work? You see the Noor Orphans, for example, the Zahra Trust, the Lady Fatima Trust, Al-Ain, all these organizations I see doing very good work in helping the yatama. All you got to do is make a resolution that this safar, in honor of Bibi Sukaina, for example, I'm going to sponsor an orphan. I'm going to give away from myself because Rasulullah said to me, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the one hand, that me and the sponsor of the orphan are like this, and what better place is there to be than next to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the Day of Judgment? And on the other hand, because your humanity calls you to it. Don't just do things. There are many who do things because if I do this, I go to heaven. And if I do that, I go to hell. And if I do this, they become businessmen. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, I don't worship you out of fear of hell, for it's the worship of a slave. Nor do I worship you because I want heaven, for that's the worship of a business. I worship you, O Lord, because I found you worthy of being worshipped. That is the worship of a free human. Be free humans. Free in which sense? Not everything you do. Jannah? Will I get Jannah? What's my position? Don't worry about Jannah and Jannah. Do it to get closer to Allah and to help society as a whole. So on the one hand, we had the emotional side. On the other hand, the economic side. If I'm not giving back my khums, I'm not giving back, for example, my sadaqah and my zakat, for example, if it's applicable to me, then the orphan on the Day of Judgment will say, you're the one. It was because of you that I'm in this. Because all of us have our dues that we have to give back to society. You don't need to be a Muslim for this. In this country, I may not be of a religion. Do I have to give taxes back to the state? And let's be frank here. But sometimes when you tell someone 10%, 15%, 20%, 2.5%, why do I have to pay? Okay, wait. We have in society a general consensus that if we're going to help the hospitals get built, we're going to help the needy and the poor, Not everybody was blessed where you're blessed. Believe you me, my dear brothers and sisters, where we landed in this world is arbitrary. I could have been in the middle of Eritrea or Somalia. I could have been born there. I was fortunate in a way that I was born in London. Someone may have been born in the middle of a shelter in Sham. I could have been born, look at me, I'm born at a time which of relative good ease for Shia. You could have been born at the time of a Hajjaj bin Yusuf al-Thaqafi. You could have been born in the time of others who were ruthless like Mutawakkil al-Abbasi or Yazid bin Mu'awiyah. You could have been born at any of those times. So therefore for us, when we have this rizq from Allah, let's not be stingy with what we have. That if I have my khums, for example, you find that there may be some who will say to you that Fadak was taken from Bibi. Maybe you're taking your own amount from the children of Bibi. You have a problem with Fadak being taken. Maybe you are taking from the children of Bibi. When the Quran came with the verse of khums, what did it say? وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ مَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى. A fifth of that which you acquire goes to Allah, to His Prophet, to the near ones. Of the near ones, the orphans of the near ones. The first category of Sahm Sadat was what? As-Sahm Sadat, which came to us, of course, after the period of the Ghaiba, where there was a division that you see. Allah, the Prophet, and the Ahlul Bayt. In the absence of the Ahlul Bayt, it was seen that Sahm al-Imam would go in the process of ijtihad towards the mujtahid, according to some opinions, and then Sahm al-Sada to the yatim from the Sadat. How many Sadat do we know who are poor? I ask you. So many. Even in London. But sometimes they're embarrassed to say. And anyone who studied Karbala and Kufa and Sham will know that the Sadat would walk in the street and people would throw food at them. And in some cases they would say, we cannot take this for we cannot accept sadaqah. People say, why khums? Because the Sayyid cannot accept the wajib sadaqah. Yes, wajib sadaqah. Mustahab, there is a difference of opinion. But wajib sadaqah cannot be accepted. So you had that there is a system called khums. Someone said, but say, no, what if I'm not making my profit and so on? Then that doesn't apply. It applies to those who, for example, there's a certain amount at the end of the year after what you require in your life and so on, the necessities you calculated from there, there is an amount to be given back. Then when people come and say to me, what is happening in terms of the orphans around the world? I say sometimes we're responsible because we're not giving back. If we all gave back, then we'll help support them. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you have sadaqah. You don't have to focus on the 20%. How about the 80%? Many will only say to you, what's wajib on me, bro? Don't tell me what's mustahab. Tell me what's wajib. Sometimes the mustahab is what is more spiritual. What do I mean? Do your wajib. But sometimes giving that little bit extra. How many times do societies say that little bit extra that you give? That's common in society. That I don't need to give it, but I'm going to give it because a lot of this I don't need in my life. I actually can give to others. Hence the Quran highlighted that economic and emotion are vital in the orphan. If you do one but not the other, there'll still be a problem. If now I hug an orphan but I don't give the rights to the orphan, how am I going to change it? Or if I give the rights to the orphan, but when the orphan comes in, I'm like, shh, move, don't touch my clothing. You're dirt, you're poor, you're not at my level, I'm at a certain level. Because don't get me wrong, anyone can fall in that trap where you only want to hang with people at your level. If one of your friend circle is a bit poorer, you're like, I don't really want to be seen around because not as, no. Islam said there may be someone downtrodden, someone Allah's given rizq, treat them all the same. For at the end of the day, on the day of judgment, all of you will come out with a kafan on your body. Whether you're a king or whether you're a pauper. And that's why in Surah An-Nisa, how many verses highlighted that be careful when you're an uncle and you scam the orphan children of your brother? How many times you hear stories that your dad died young and your uncle stole all the property? How many times? The Quran came down harsh on this in Surah An-Nisa. Because Surah An-Nisa has many verses, not only about orphans, but about the wars that were taking place and how many widows there were and how many orphans there were. And the Quran would say, وَآتُوا الْيَتَامَ أَمْوَالًا. Give the orphans their wealth. Don't scam it. You know that they're kids, their dads died, you change the paperwork. That building, you put to yourself. How many times the Quran says, وَلَا تَتَبَدَّلُوا الْخَبِيثَ بِالطَّيِّبِ? Don't swap the bad and the good. Because you'll find that some people, what would they do? Some people, their brother dies. They know he has a very prestigious building, for example, in a good area. They know that the orphans don't have bank accounts at NatWest and Barclays. See, if you're a 6-year-old and your brother is an 8-year-old, you've got a sister who's a 4-year-old. At that moment, the money which belongs to you because your dad died, it is to be held by, for example, the mujtahid or the hakim al-shara until you reach an age where he passes it on to you. What do some uncles do? Takes the building, he changes the name, takes it. Why are you taking it, bro? Oh, I've taken it because I have to look after it. Okay, but how's it yours now? You said look after it. Now you have to give it back to them. No, you don't understand. You don't understand. Their father told me to look after it. Okay, but now they're 21, 27, and 30. So now you have to give it back to them. No. Because he told me to look after it, then it's mine. The Quran came down. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ الْيَتَامَى. Those who eat the wealth of the orphan. إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارًا. They will eat fire on the day of judgment. This kid has grown up. There's no dad, for example, in their life. Instead of you caring more for them, you scam the father's money and take it. Islam wasn't just a religion of the prayer mat and the rosary. It was a religion that wanted to point out some of the dhulm that exists in our society. May Allah never show us a day where dunya takes over us like this. Where your own brother's children, you should be broken for your brother's children. Instead, you go and steal the money. And then later on, the children come and say, no, but I'm sorry, I used it, I spent it. That is haram money. That money goes into your stomach. In this world, the food is haram. But in the hereafter, what will happen to you? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ الْيَتَامَى ظُلْمًا إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارًا. That they will in this world. Now, subhanallah, this ayah says that they will have in their bellies, in their stomachs, fire. And then they will see the fire. Someone says, hold on. If already I'm going to have fire, that must be qiyamah. No. When you eat haram, you'll feel it like it's fire in your life. How? I don't know. I must admit. Because this ayah in the Quran, any of you who wants to go and read the ayah, look at the beginning of the chapter 4 of the Holy Quran, from verse 10 onwards. It says, those who eat the wealth of the orphans in oppression will eat fire in their stomachs and then see fire, taste fire. That means there's two fires. There's a fire in this world, but I'm not eating fire in this world. You may not literally be eating, but you may sometimes feel anxious. You get angry quickly. You can't rest, but you've got money. How many times you see someone so much money but can't sleep? Isn't that feeling of fire in you? You want to feel cool, you can't. Why? Because maybe some of what you bought into the house was haram. And therefore you found that Islam touched on this. That don't end up having a stage where you do dhulm to that yatim. That yatim is already going through a hard life. And now on top of that you do dhulm. And every moment you do dhulm to a yatim, then you have not acknowledged how much an orphan goes through. For a lover of Al Muhammad knows one thing. That Al Muhammad from the beginning of them to the last of them all saw the meaning of yatim. I ask you, Imam al-Hussein was an orphan or no? I ask all of you here sitting. And everybody listening to us online. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was an orphan? Of course he was. His mother Bibi. His mother Bibi Fatima. How old was Imam al-Hussein when his mom died? Imam al-Hussein was about 6.5 years of age. Imam al-Hassan was an orphan. Sayyidah Zainab was an orphan. Kulthum, Bibi Kulthum was an orphan. Yes. That means Al Muhammad, not just Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Bibi Fatima, I ask each and every one of you, was Bibi Fatima an orphan? Yes. Bibi was 5 when her mom, Bibi Khadija, died. Subhanallah, this family, all of them saw trial. So don't blame God when you see a trial. There are many, you know what, I don't believe in God. Look what happened to me. I lost it. Baba, Al Muhammad saw more than you. And we always say they are ma'soom. Ma'soom doesn't mean you're a robot. You still have feelings. You still cry. Your heart still breaks. Yes. You found, therefore, Al Muhammad, all of them were orphans. And maybe, just maybe, this is what was the strength for many of them when Karbala. That they could always say that Bibi Fatima was an orphan when she was 5. That Imam al-Hassan was an orphan when he was 7. That Imam al-Hussein was an orphan when he was 6. Bibi Zainab was an orphan. Kulthum was an orphan. Look at Al Muhammad. How many trials and tribulations they went through. Did you ever see them complain? Why me? On the contrary. Oh Allah, accept our little that we've given you. Accept our sacrifice. And that's why Karbala, Kufa, Sham, one may call it the journey of the orphans. Allahu Akbar. Journey of orphans. Because not only did you have Bibi Zainab and the likes of Bibi Kulthum, they were orphans from a young age, but those who lost their fathers at Karbala, how many orphans? And who do I begin with? Hamida, the daughter of Muslim bin Aqil. The first who was a yatimah was Hamida, the daughter of Muslim. Because Muslim bin Aqil did not die at Karbala, he died in Kufa. So the first to know that she had lost her dad was Hamida, who became an umbrella protecting her. Sukaina. When Imam al-Hussein tapped the head of Hamida, she said to him, Uncle, have I become a yatima? He said to her, Hamida, how do you know? She said, because you tapped my head. And then Sukaina would come to her and say, Hamida, don't worry, I'm here for you. I will look after you. I will protect you. From that young age. Then on the night of the 11th of Muharram, Shama Ghariba, these ayahs I quoted, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Hamid bin Muslim says that on the afternoon of Ashura, I saw these young girls and their dresses were on fire. There was fire all over. Because they're running from tent to tent. May Allah never show any orphan this, believe you me. They were running from tent to tent. Hamid bin Muslim says that I came to one of them. I said to her, here, have some water. She looked at me, she said, oh man, are you with us or are you against us? He said, I'm neither with you, nor am I against you. She said, then how can you ask me to take water when my father died thirsty? Then after that, he looked at her and he said to her, that may I ask you, she said, have you read the Quran? He said, yes, I have. She said, have you read the ayah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. As for the orphan, do not hurt the orphan. He said, yes. She said, أَنَا يَتِيمَةِ الْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. I am the orphan of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And then after that, وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. When someone asks you a question, don't reject the question. He said, ask me. She said, where is the land of Najaf? Why? Because they tell me my grandfather is buried in Najaf. I want to call out to him. Imagine these orphans. Then from Karbala to Kufa, do you know what they did to these orphans? Some of them were slapped. Some of them were kicked. 50 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa said that me and the sponsor of an orphan are in Jannah. Don't hurt the orphan. Look where Islam reached. That they would slap them. They would kick them. I heard brother recite the Noha just before I went up. And if I'm not mistaken, the translation of some of these Nohas you hear, for example, the likes of Sukaina saying, why are they looking at us? Why are they hitting us? Why are they staring at us? It's one thing to be an orphan, but to have never been hit or slapped. Another to have wounds all over your body. Another to be injured. Another to be calling out, where is Abbas? Where is Hussein? Where are our shelters? And then to be taken to Sham and then paraded. There are orphans in this world. They are orphans, but they're not paraded in the middle of the streets of London. They're not chained up in the middle of the streets of Toronto. Rather, there are shelters for them. Al Muhammad were paraded and sheltered. No shelter. No, they were placed in the ruins of Sham. And every night you would find that young girl, she would call out every single night, she would call out, my auntie Zainab, when's my father coming back? My auntie, where is my father? And Sayyidah Zainab would always say to her, don't worry, remain patient. In a moment, your father is on a journey. Try and remain strong. Yes, try and remain patient in this period. But on a night like this, you found that this young girl, while she was near Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, all of a sudden, in her dream, she had seen her father, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. May Allah bless all the lovers of the daughters of Sayyid al-Shuhada on a night like this. Because in her dream, she saw Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Suddenly, she woke up and she called out, Wa abataya wa Husayna. She called out the name of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Sayyidah Zainab, like she had been a mother for all of these orphans. She came towards her, she hugged her. She said to her, my auntie, I wanted to see my father, Aba Abdullah. I miss my father, I wanted to be next to him. Sayyidah Zainab tried to maintain her calm. She tried to tell her, remain patient. But of course, when she called out the name of her father, Yazid had woken up. Yazid had called out, what is it? What's the issue? Why is there being a scream? What's going on? They said to him that Hussein's daughter has just woken up. He said, what does she want? What does that girl want? They said to him that she wants to see her father. He said, very well, then take her father to her. The head of Imam al-Hussein was in a certain box, in a certain bowl. All of a sudden, one of the soldiers of Yazid, he walked in. When he walked in, at that moment, the young daughter looked at her auntie Zainab because she should see that there is something like food being given to her in a bowl. She looked towards her auntie Zainab. She said, Auntie, I'm not hungry. Why have they bought me food? At that moment, she removed the top of the bowl. She saw the holy head of Aba Abdullah in front of her. What does the girl shout out? Abba, 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 man alladhi qata'a rasak. Father, 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 who is it that has severed your head from your body? أبا من الذي خضب لحيتك? Father, 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 who has dyed your beard and drenched it with all that blood? أبا من الذي أيتمني على صغر سني? Father, Father Hussein, who has orphaned me at this young age? Father, 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 look at the wounds on my body. Father, 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 see the bruises on my face. Father, 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 look at what they've done to our hijab in Kufa and Sham. All of a sudden, there was a silence. When that silence took place, all of a sudden there was a pause. Imam Zain al-Abidin looked towards Sayyidah Zainab and he said to her, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Zainab looked towards the head of Aba Abdullah. What did she say? Akhi Hussein, انظر إلينا. Oh, Aba Abdullah, look at our plight here in the ruins of Sham. Your young one has passed away. Imam Zain al-Abidin knew that this was difficult for Zainab alayhi salam. So the Imam took the young daughter, he took that Ruqayya. When he took her to one of the ladies. He said to her, go and give a ghusl to the young girl. The lady took her. She went to do her ghusl. But she came back shortly afterwards. When she came back, she said to the Imam, I cannot wash her. He said to her, why? She said, was she ill when she died? The Imam said, no. She said to her, then what are all of these blue marks on her body? The Imam said, these aren't the marks of illness. Rather, these are the whips of Shimr bin al-Jawsh and all that journey. I leave you with this line. When they went to Karbala on the Arba'een, Sayyidah Zainab, she went towards the grave of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Imam al-Hussein, when he left Zainab that final time, he said, Zainab, I want you to look after all of these, protect them, make sure that they're all in good order and looked after. When Zainab came towards the grave of Imam al-Hussein, she said to him, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Then one by one she said, all of your amanas I brought back to you, except Ruqayya, I left her back in Sham. When she finished from the Imam, she went towards the grave of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Why? She knew the relationship between Abbas and Sukaina. She came towards the grave of Abul Fadl. She said to him, Abbas, where were you when they slapped Sukaina on her face? Abbas, where were you when Sukaina was chained from her neck to the other neck? Abbas, where were you when they ripped the hijab of us through Kufa and Sham? Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Raise your hands, my dear brothers and sisters. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad. Raise us with the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa zaman. Ya Allah, allow us to visit the grave of the daughter of Sayyid al-Shuhada in the land of Sham. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in honor of those who are feeling unwell. There are many who are facing trials with their health in this difficult period. Let us all come together and recite the dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The verse of the Quran. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. My dear brothers and sisters, some of you at home are watching this, but you're not raising your hands. This doesn't show that we really want to help everybody. Our dua is a dua. إِلَيْكَ يَا رَبِّي نَصَبْتُ وَجْهِي وَإِلَيْكَ يَا رَبِّي مَدَدْتُ يَدِي أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. With a Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it, wherever you may be, the loudest of your salawat.